Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on another Nighthaunt painting technique, and this is going to be for the ghostly parts of the Grimghast Reaper. So we're going to be painting the ethereal parts on this Grimghast Reaper, and it's going to be these dangly bits just below the chainmail. So the first colour we'll be using is Citadel Nighthaunt Gloom. We'll also be using Nihilakh Oxide and the Apothecary white contrast paint, and finally we'll be using some black Templar contrast paint as well. Now, the Grimghast Reapers, they are darker at the top, getting to lighter, so we'll be using the Templar at the top, then the Nighthaunt Gloom, then a Nihilakh Oxide, then finally some Apothecary white at the very bottom of the ethereal parts. So first up, we're going to put some Nighthaunt Gloom down. Now when you're doing this, you want to be careful that you are putting it only on the ethereal part. You don't want it to get onto the black or into the chainmail or anything like that. So if you start by applying it, you can apply it quite liberally. You do want some of the Nighthaunt Gloom to be there and to be quite wet as well for when you start applying the black Templar as well at the top of the ethereal part. So at the moment I'm not putting too much on. I'm just kind of painting up the bits so that you can see where we're going to be working on mainly. But it also leaves a little bit of the Nighthaunt Gloom, so that as you're adding the black Templar it will mix together, and that'll just give you that little bit there to help you blend it into the Nighthaunt Gloom. So I'm adding a little bit more Nighthaunt Gloom to these parts now. So you have all that colour. Now we're going to use a little bit of black Templar. We're going to be adding that to the very top of these ethereal parts, just beneath the black cloak and the chainmail. So you want to be putting this on, you want to put quite a bit so it's quite wet, and then you want to be sort of dragging that down into the Nighthaunt Gloom eventually. So what I'm going to do there is put a little bit more black Templar than you probably usually use at the top, so you do have that wet paint, and then we're going to add a little bit of Nighthaunt Gloom and start blending that in while it's still wet. Now if at any point you're doing this and you get the black going too far down into the Nighthaunt Gloom, you can just get a little bit more Nighthaunt Gloom and kind of brush that up and mix that with the black to lighten it up. Or you can use your brush to absorb a little bit of the black Templar, and then again just use the Nighthaunt Gloom you've got there just to brush that up and to lighten it and blend that in together. So you can see here that the black Templar is in place. We're just adding that to the detailed areas around the edges of the cloak and what have you. And now we're going to be spreading this around and down. You'll probably spot me coming back and adding little bits of Nighthaunt Gloom to it and spreading that down too, because the idea is that you have both pots next to each other and you're just using a little bit of one and spreading that down, then mixing a little bit of the other, so that they have the Nighthaunt Gloom at the bottom of that, and then you have the black Templar at the top, and you're just blending that while it is on the miniature. Obviously you want to make sure that you're not getting the black Templar into the Nighthaunt Gloom or anything like that. So now we're going to use a little bit of Nihilakh Oxide, and this is going to be for the section of the ethereal parts beneath the Nighthaunt Gloom. So when you're putting this on, you want to put this on quite wet as well, and you want to have a slight overlap with the Nighthaunt Gloom, and even possibly up to where you're previously blended that together with the black Templar. Now this is a very simple method. You can spend a lot of time on this if you want to. This is just a very basic technique to getting that blend going from the dark to the light colour. But if you wanted to spend a lot more time on it, you would obviously have a far smoother blend to it. As I'm painting these up for the tabletop and not any kind of competition or anything like that, I'm quite happy with how they're going. So now that you've got the Nihilakh Oxide added there, we're now going to use a little bit of Citadel Apothecary white and add that to the bottom. And you're now going to do exactly the same with the Apothecary white as you did with the Nighthaunt Gloom and the Nihilakh Oxide, and just blend that to the colour just above it. So you're going to be blending that into the Nihilakh Oxide. As you can see, it is coming along quite nicely. You're starting with that dark at the top, and it's coming down into the light. I try to keep the black Templar mainly in the recesses, so just underneath the chainmail and underneath the cloak, and then where the concave sections of the ethereal parts are, I try to make them slightly darker, so you get the lighter shades on the more raised crests of those parts. So as I say, I'm only doing one half of the Grimghast Reaper here, because I find it easy to work in half sections on these miniatures because the sides are quite distinct. So if you just do one side at a time, it does tend to work quite well. It saves you risking the paint drying or the washes drying on one side while you're working on the other. So by doing it half and half, you can get both sides done without the risk of them drying. Because one thing you should be aware of is if the paint does dry and then or it's nearly dry, and then you use one of the other colours on it, you might be left with that ridge of darkness from the previous colour where you've sort of wiped the wet bit away. So now we're just using a little bit of Citadel Deepkin flesh, and all we're going to do here is highlight the edges of the ethereal parts. Now because this isn't anything to do with light, I'm highlighting all the sides, the top and the bottoms of all these ethereal parts. You just want to get the brush. I tend to use the side of the brush when I'm doing this and just ever so slightly and ever so gently use the side of the brush to brush that onto the ridges. Zoomed in there so you can get a slightly better look at that. Still think these Nighthaunt models are absolutely superb. There's a lot of character in them, and I love the way they're all kind of ghostly and really dynamic, so once they are painted they do look really cool. Quite a terrifying army I would have thought to see on the tabletop. Not sure how they play, but they do look great. So carry on painting these ridges. We're going to speed this up just so we can get through this part, because it's basically just doing this all the way around it now on both sides. If there are any kind of the ethereal effects that you want to see from a specific Nighthaunt miniature, just sing out in the comments below, because I am trying to work my way through them. There's a few little different techniques and a few little differences to each one. So if you do want to see any specific ones, just give me a shout. I can try and get some of them done. Like so. And that is the finished technique. It's a very quick and easy method to do it. As I say, you can spend ages and ages going over it if you want to, getting those mixes really smooth. But if you're just doing it for the tabletop, you can't go wrong with this. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media, linked below. Thanks very much. If you like the channel, you enjoyed the content, and you'd like to support us, please head to our Ko-fi page linked below, where you can buy us a brew. Thanks very much.